Hi, my name is Elvis Rodriguez, your project management coach. And in today's lesson, I'm going to share 3 of my favorite tips on how to create status reports for executives who don't have a lot of time to spend with you in going through lots of details. Also, I want to encourage you to hang around toward the end of this video because I'm going to show you 5 formats that you can use in these situations. All right, let's go. Okay, I promised you 3 tips, so here's the first one. Add the definition of status reports to the requirements phase of your project. Here's what I mean by that. Every project has a requirements gathering process that occurs at the beginning of the project. During this phase, we gather functional and non-functional requirements, and key stakeholders are part of this process, so there's never going to be a better time to speak with them about their reporting needs. Even though status reports are not an official part of requirements gathering, on my projects, I include them in the requirements process. I baseline them and have them signed off along with everything else to make sure that I'm in full agreement with stakeholders on the reports that I will be giving them during the project. From that point forward, I treat these reports like any other requirement. If they change, I update the report baseline and have them signed off again. Here are a few more things to consider while defining your status reports. First of all, reports must be created for the right audience. In other words, don't create and deliver reports to someone just because they're an executive or they seem important. That can end up pulling random leaders into your project who can derail and muddy things up unnecessarily. Instead, make sure you create and deliver reports to your real stakeholders, those who have a direct interest in the outcome of your project. Again, those stakeholders are likely to be working with you on requirements, which is why I take the opportunity to define reports with them while I have their attention in the requirements phase. Next, read your statement of work carefully to understand who the key players are. For example, if you're delivering a software system, find out who's paying for the system, who will own that system when you're done, who's responsible for supporting the system. These will be your real stakeholders, and you want to focus your reporting toward them. If you work at a smaller organization that doesn't use statements of work, interview the project sponsor so you can get important details around who the main players will be. Finally, request and review an org chart so you can see where those individuals are sitting in the organization. You can also see who they report to and who reports to them, which may give you additional clues as to who to include for status report planning. Doing these things will help you to bring the right people to the table when it comes to discussing what reports will be needed on your project. Speaking of reports that need to be planned ahead of time, I have to tell you this funny story that happened to me years ago when I was working projects for a senior executive at a very large company. One day he came up to me and he said, "Hey Elvis, I need you to create a specific status report that I want to review each week." And so he went ahead and gave me all the data points that needed to be included in this report. And to be honest, the more I listened to him and the more I saw what he needed, it made no sense to me. In fact, it made absolutely no sense to anyone on the project. But because he was such a high up executive and because he asked for it, week after week and month after month, we gave him this report. One day we found ourselves at a large status meeting and he was going around the room getting status from everyone. And when it came to my turn, he looked at me with this funny look and he says, "Hey Elvis, what is this report and what does it mean anyway?" And I was stunned. I was speechless. I had no idea what this report meant, and I was upset that he couldn't even remember that he's the one that asked for this useless report to begin with. I don't know if anything like that has ever happened to you, but I can tell you it led to one of the most embarrassing moments in my career. So my point to you is this. When it comes to status reports, make sure you don't produce any status reports that you don't understand. If you can't speak to every data point in the report, and if you can't defend every data point in the report, it should never leave your hands. All right, back to the lesson. Okay, here's tip number 2. Make sure your reports are based on metrics stakeholders care about. Here's what I mean. Stakeholders, especially executive stakeholders, are interested in the outcome of measures. And I want you to listen very closely to what I'm going to say here. In the eyes of a stakeholder, if you are not measuring anything, you are not managing anything. So make sure that in your reporting, you're using metrics that matter to them. Otherwise, they will see no real value in your reports. Again, this is why catching these stakeholders during the requirements phase is so important. It gives you plenty of opportunity to learn about what is most important to them. Here are a few measures to consider while planning reports with your stakeholders. All of these examples are items that executives care about and can be reported on with a red, amber, green indicator. And I'll show you an example just ahead in this video of what an actual report can look like. But for now, let's just take a look at this list. Are the client benefits being realized? Let them know each week whether the customer is receiving value or we're somehow missing the mark. Are the delivery organization's benefits being realized? Help your executive measure whether this project is meeting the internal goals they set. Is the scope realistic and being managed properly? Are the work and schedule predictable, or is this all over the place where some adjustment may be needed? Is your team high performing, or are some changes in order? Remember, these measures are helping the executive to understand where things are, but perhaps even more important, it gives them the information they need to help you succeed if things are not going as planned. Tip number 3, keep your reports brief. I know this sounds simple, but I can't tell you how many reports I've seen over the years that are just too long. Executives don't have time to go through 12 pages of reports, and you know what? They won't. No matter how many pages of fancy reports you give them, most executives are only looking for that one key report that gives them the insight that they're looking for each week or each reporting period. So again, during the requirements phase, find out what that one key report is and produce it for them. Let's take a look at 5 different formats of executive status reports that you might be able to use when you're doing your status reporting for your executive. What you see on the screen I call the 7 keys status report, and that is because I have 7 keys on the report. But in your case, you could call it the 5 keys, the 6 keys, the 3 keys report, however many keys you design and come up with when you do your planning with your executive. In this case, I'm showing stakeholders are committed, business benefits are being realized, work and schedule are predictable, scope is realistic and managed, team is high performing, risks are mitigated, delivery organization benefits are realized. You see there's a legend at the bottom that shows them what green means, what amber or yellow means, and what red means, and a space to drop your comments in each week. Above, you see that there's a key comment section for the overall comments that you have on everything. And so this is one report I find that executives really like because it's short and to the point and it hits the key areas that they're interested in. Here's a format you might consider if you're delivering a solution to 2 locations. You see that at the top there's an overall indicator, and then you have location 1, location 2 indicators. You have your legend showing what green means, what amber or yellow means, what red means, and your key comments overall. Then in the body beneath, you have your weekly update for location 1 and 2, and on the right side, you have your 30 to 60 day key action items for location 1 and location 2. Down below, you're showing what the primary risk or issue is overall that you'd like to call out in this meeting. Here's another example where you're comparing this period to last period with 6 or 7 metrics of your choosing. You have a comment section, and then on the right hand side you have your key accomplishments for this period and your key planned activities for next period. Again, this is a quick hitting report that someone can sit down and read in a few minutes and get the insights that they need. Here's a 4th sample format that you might consider when working with an executive who's only concerned about certain key tasks. This is a simple grid. You drop your tasks in 1, 2, 3, 4, however many you have. You have a start and a finish date for each one, a status indicator for each one, and any comments you might want to make if a task is not green. Executives will ask you right away if they see something that they're concerned about. And remember, they don't want to read an entire book about a task. They just want to gain insight into these tasks and have an opportunity to ask about them if there's something that concerns them. Here's the fifth and final format that I'd like to share with you, and you might consider using this format if you're working with an executive who's sort of milestone driven. Notice that at the top you have an area for key comments, you have indicators for the overall status, for scope, for schedule, for resources, or you can remove these and drop in the ones that are most important to them. You have a snapshot of key achievements against plan for this week, a snapshot of activities for next week, an area where you can drop in the most critical risk or issue that you're working with right now. And then on the right hand side, you have a milestone chart where they can track the milestones that are most important to them. Okay, let's summarize what we've learned. Be sure to add the definition of status reports to the requirements phase of your project. Remember, if you're not measuring anything, you're not managing anything. Therefore, make sure your reports are showing progress against a baseline. Third, keep your reports brief. And finally, when working with executives, do your best to use a one-page status format like the ones I shared with you in this lesson. Hey, thank you for watching this video. If you found it useful, I would ask you for two things. Number one, hit the like button, and number two, subscribe to my channel. In the days and weeks ahead, I'm going to continue to post really great project management tips, and I don't want you to miss them. All right, see you in the next video. Hey, one more thing. Don't forget to check the links below and follow me on Instagram and Facebook. And also remember to come back here to my YouTube channel and let me know if you were able to use any of the status formats that I shared with you. All right, talk to you soon.